Welcome back to the channel, Russia in Context. We resumed the Moscow Green Ring on the side of Leninsky Prospect, which we are about to cross thanks to a подземный переход, which is an underground crossing. These are quite common, especially at large thoroughfares or busy intersections, and you can find them basically anywhere there's a metro station. This recessed area off to the right may seem like an odd addition, but these passages used to be all packed full of stalls, some selling things such as snacks or small electronics like USB drives, cheap linens, even souvenirs. Over the last decade, Mayor Sergei Sobyanin, he slowly demolished and swept away all of the sort of free-for-all marketplace atmosphere that marked Moscow throughout the area of its predecessor, Lushkov, although remnants like this one can still be found if you know where to look for them. The city loves to tear out and replace asphalt far more frequently than it's needed to be done, but that's a topic/complaint for another time. In a lot of ways, we're at the absolute edge of Moscow. On my left, there is a residential neighborhood with typical late Soviet-era high-rises, some schools, and various other government offices as well. And to my right is a narrow strip of greenery sandwiched in on the other side by MCAD and an FSB institute. One of the city's top priorities the last few years, probably starting around the time of COVID if I remember correctly, has been to undertake works projects in basically every single park in the city. While the end results are not bad, as you'll see later in this series, the ground I'm riding over is smooth, hard-packed earth, all natural. Sure, it gets dirty here when it's wet, but that's just the outdoors, and one of the things I've come to love about Moscow is how you can find honest-to-God forest in a city of 15 million people. So I get a bit miffed when I see them sterilizing things, reworking areas that are fine when budget finances could be better applied elsewhere to the city. I thought for a second I might just ride through, but A, loose sand has terrible traction, B, it was fenced off at the other end, and C, I didn't want to accidentally mess up the lines workers had put down. Even though I don't like the work the city has decided to do, doesn't make the laborers guilty. So we turn around here and do a bit of pathfinding. Now, Zaказnik Tёplый Stan isn't all that old, but it officially only formed in 1998, at least on paper. However, this area has been in use for ages. Now let's talk about the name Tёplый Stan, because that's where we're riding through. That's the name of this part of the city. Let's talk about what that means. The word Tёплый in Russian means warm, and Stan is a little bit harder to translate, but it's basically like a layover site. So how did the name Tёplый Stan come to be applied to this region? Well, there are two kind of versions for how that might be. The first variant kind of dates back to the time of the Mongols, who conquered the majority of Russia back in the Middle Ages. They required these sort of payments, tributes from their lands that they had conquered, and it's possible that Tёplый Stan was reference to this area where they had set up a long-term camp, especially in some of the colder months, where they would camp out and collect their, well, payments. The other option might be that the name is a reference to it being a place. Again, remember, Stan means kind of a shelter, a waypoint, that it may have been a place where watchmen and border patrols could warm themselves and rest. Way back in the day, this would have been about a horse ride's length from the center of Moscow, so it would have been basically the edge of that territory. Therefore, they would have had some guards and whatnot out in this area, and having a little location for them to, not freeze to death in the winter months and a lot of the other cooler months of the year as well too. This would have been a good location for them. So those are the two possible explanations for the name Tёplый Stan. The famous Russian poet Fyodor Tyutchev is said to have loved spending his springs and summers here growing up, back when this would have been far removed from the city during the mid-19th century. A bit more than a century ago, only 200 people lived in the two villages in this region, and there was no industry. The two villages were Верхние и Нижние Тёплые Stany. Fast forward to the 1970s, and Moscow had finally sprawled its way out to envelop the sleepy region. Construction of massive blocks of flats began, and this little neighborhood came into existence. This is what I guess qualifies as the main entrance of Zaказnik Tёplый Stan. The gates are closed up and it looks kinda uninviting because they're actually doing work here connected to the new metro line to Troitsk. And although the station in this area will be about half a kilometer from where we are in the opposite direction, they have to build ventilation shafts and whatnot. Going downhill, picking up some speed. We're gonna breeze past it really quickly, but take a look. You can see lots of activities here for kids. This is obviously a very popular place for families in this area. We've got playgrounds, and then they have other sort of attractions that people will come to, like inflatable bouncy castles, things of that nature. You can even find horses here. Off to the left here, we have an amphitheater as we cross the dike. Now, this part of the Tёплый Stan Park is probably one of the more difficult sections of the Moscow Green Ring, in my opinion, as it's some real kind of off-road riding. Really bumpy, going over roots. This area that I'm riding through is often labeled a park or an urban forest, but these are both misnomers, as this territory was not specially designed or planted. No, this is an island of forest that was given a protected status as the city swelled around it. It's the source of the Jakob River, which was dammed to create these two ponds, which citizens enjoy year-round. People love to have a dip on particularly hot days, though it's technically forbidden. Others bring their rods and hope to hook whatever's biting. Remember how I mentioned that this was the hardest section of the Green Ring, or one of them? Yeah, this hill is a big part of it. God, how I hate this hill. In the back half of the park, there's not much to be said. This is a forest, as mentioned before, one which has always been here. So let's just cruise for a bit. Now, although this is technically a forest, because it's been surrounded by the city for so long, there isn't that much in terms of fauna. That said, you can definitely find rabbits, squirrels, and moles here, if we're talking about mammals. But really, if you're into bird watching, this is a pretty good place to be. Down below here on the left is a spring which supposedly has some of the purest water in the city flowing out of it, but I can't tell you for sure. I've never tried it. Out of the park and into another nondescript courtyard. This is the Khankovo region of Moscow now. Here we have another green area we're just going to ride through. This provides a nice calm area for people to leave their apartments and just walk around and enjoy the weather. Not far from here is the highest point in Moscow, 254.6 meters above sea level. And up ahead, we can see the end of the trail for this video. That's Улица Профсоюзная up ahead, a fairly large thoroughfare that runs out of the city, and it will be where we finish up. That does it for this section of the Moscow Green Ring. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to click subscribe if you haven't before, and hit the like button. Also be sure to leave any questions or comments. I really do appreciate looking at those, and I enjoy responding to them as well. Check back in soon for the next section of the Moscow Green Ring, as well as other videos about Moscow and Russia. For now though, this has been Russia in Context. Thanks for watching.